Welcome back. Let's adjust my mic. Chapter 4 breakdown this will be. So chapter 4 being shortcut to mushrooms. And I've got some notes and we're going to have a little look through it. So let's just cut straight to the chase. So it's a shorter chapter, this one, chapter 4. In fact, I think my recording of it is only about 35 minutes. Let's just put this in front of me. The other audiobooks were at least 49, 50 minutes. Some of them over an hour. So yeah, that's quite a difference. So we've got Shortcut to Mushrooms. This is taking place just after obviously the third chapter, where they've had multiple encounters with the Black Riders. They met the elves at the end of the chapter in Woodhall, and that's where we kind of left off, and they've just woken up after conversations with Gildor, after food and drink and lots of merriment. And our first little thing to delve into is as Frodo's having breakfast, he talks to Sam while Pippin's dancing on the grass, I think, and he talks to Sam about whether Sam's still going to come on the quest, if he still wants to come, and also about, and this is the interesting bit, also about what he thinks of elves. So if you remember back to the second chapter, and the first chapter actually, it's referenced, Sam just loves tales of the elves, and he's very moved by them. And Frodo asks him, "Do you still like them now that you've had a closer view?" He answers, "They seem a bit above my likes and dislikes, so to speak. It doesn't seem to matter, I think, what I think about them. They are quite different from what I expected, so old, young, and so gay and sad, as it were." And Frodo actually is quite startled at this change in this kind of poeticism and articulation in this particular way that Sam's, having about these elves. But I think he kind of gets at something really here about the way that Tolkien portrayed these immortal beings, and kind of alludes to some of the agelessness, the sorrow, the just sheer amount of experience that they've had just means that they are kind of, above, as he said, above other opinions, like the opinions of them, because they're as old as the earth around them. And it kind of gets into a little bit of how maybe they're a bit removed as well. In the last chapter, I think one of the elves said, "But hobbits are so dull," and they talk about mortals and things like that. And I think these elves particularly, well, they're high elves. Gildor and Glorian is their leader. He's of the House of Finrod, and they are positively ancient in every sense of the word. I think these elves, as elves go, would be a little bit more lofty and removed. Like, you might get the sense that they're almost a little bit cold. They're like, mortals, hobbits are so dull, when the rest of us think the hobbits are quite charming. And I put a little note here that you actually kind of see a bit of a difference between the cultures, and not races, but kind of subsects of elves. Like the Galadrim in Lorien that we'll meet at the end of this book, Fellowship of the Ring, are a little closer to home, I think. I think Sam remarks on them as being, like the hobbits are part of the land that they live in, like part of the Shire. The Galadrim are part of their forest, even more so than the hobbits are part of the Shire. They're a bit more earthy, they're a bit more down to earth, and the kind of the company seems to be a little closer to them. They're still elves, they're still immortal, they're still a bit removed, but these elves, I think, are more so, and you definitely get a sense of that also from what Sam is saying. And then next, on the same page, and this is one of the most, profound things that Sam really has to say in these first few chapters. He talks about his higher purpose. I'll see if I can find it. Do you feel any need to leave the Shire now that your wish to see them, being the elves, has already come true? And this is Frodo asking. "Yes, sir. I don't know how to say it, but after last night, I feel different. I kind of see ahead in a kind of way. I know we were going to take a very long road into darkness, but I know I can't turn back. It isn't elves now, nor dragons, nor mountains that I want. I don't rightly know what I want, but I have something to do before the end, and it lies ahead, not in the Shire. I must see it through, sir, if you understand me. And Frodo replies, I don't altogether, but I understand that Gandalf has chosen me a good companion. I'm content we will go together. And that to me was kind of slots in with a couple of other. They're not particularly like loud, obvious moments, but throughout A Fellowship of the Ring, particularly, it alludes to a bit of this kind of sense of something, as Sam says, I have something to do before the end. He kind of gets this sense, and Gandalf, and I'm going to find this in Shadow of the Past, says this, talking about the way in which the ring abandoned Gollum. Gandalf says, behind that there was something else at work, beyond any design of the ringmaker. I can put it no plainer than by saying that Bilbo was meant to find the ring, and not by its maker, in which case you were also meant to have it. And I think that may be an encouraging thought. You also get a sense of something that is outside of the worldly powers willing things to happen. Again, in that same chapter, about Gollum, Gandalf says, my heart, he is bound up with the fate of the ring. My heart tells me that he has some part to play it yet, for good or for ill, before the end. And when it comes, the pity of Bilbo may rule the fate of many, not yours at least. But that part about he has some part to play, good or ill, before the end. Again. And then I've got another, and you can see I've done quite a bit of jumping around here, in the Council of Elrond. Elrond himself says, that is the purpose for which you are called hither. Called, I say, though I have not called you to me, strangers from distant lands. You have come and are here, met, in this very nick of time, by chance as it may seem, yet it is not so. Believe rather that it is ordered so that we who sit here, none others, may now find some counsel for the peril of the world. Again, he alludes to chance, but it says it is not so. Ordered, he uses the word. So you've got, all of these different, references to some other, something behind the story. And I'm not actually going to get into that in this breakdown. I have more to say on that. But that is, if you seek to learn more about that, some people might kind of not want to picture any higher power in Tolkien's world or whatever it is. They might just want to take this as a story in itself and not really have all that much application, or don't need to hear about maybe other things. But anyway, I don't know what exactly I'm saying, but I'm saying that if you desire to think about that further, I also do, and I will probably have another discussion about it sometime later on. But that's really interesting for me. Anyway, moving on. So we've got that little conversation with Frodo. Now I need to find my place. Frodo and Sam, in which lots of interesting things happen. Now, over the page, a few pages. No, this is Three Years Company. I am on the wrong chapter. Yeah, so they leave Woodhall. They actually see a black rider against the sky as they come down towards this stream, and they get into the bush only just in time, and it becomes very apparent that kind of wherever they go, they've got enemies on all sides. But it's lucky, I think, in the end, and Frodo does make the right choice, I think, as we'll see later in the chapter, that chance has it that they stumble on Farmer Maggot, or some other thing behind the chance. Maybe it's some other will. But yes, it's good that they didn't take the road. He obviously makes a point that if they're meant to be on the road, then there's some chance they'll be looked for on the road than off it. Either way, they're now in the marsh, in the bog, in the thick briar, and then at some point they have to stop, and they find that elves have filled their bottles with a clear drink, pale golden in colour. It had a scent of honey, made of many flowers, and it was wonderfully refreshing. Very soon they were laughing and snapping their fingers at rain and at black riders. The last few miles they felt would be soon behind them. So we've got this clear, pale drink with a scent of honey, very refreshing. that the elves have put in the bottles, and it has all these marvelous effects. And the only other kind of thing that I'm now remembering is over in The Ring Goes South. Yeah, yep. Elrond gives... Yes, Elrond gives a kind of similar sounding liquid to Gandalf, and it's called Miruvur. Miruvor. But in this, it has, I think, a bit more of a sense of like rejuvenation and giving back strength and warmth because they're on the Pass of Caradhras. But to me, when I just heard about this liquid, I was like, that like to me that like it just harkens to that other part. But that might actually not at all be the same thing, but I just thought I'd point it out. Next, we're moving on. So we've got the House of Farmer Maggot. And let me see. So what was my... Where's the quote? So Maggot is telling Frodo what to think. He says, I don't know what to think. And Maggot says, well, then I'll tell you what to think. You shouldn't go on getting yourself mixed up with Hobbiton folk. Blah, 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 blah. Old Mr. Bilbo, he got money in some strange fashion in foreign parts. Maybe there are some that wants to know of the gold and the jewels buried away in Hobbiton. And obviously, this, as we learn very quickly, is just a local rumour about how of Bilbo's wealth and Bag End. But it mentions here, Frodo said nothing. The shrewd guesses of the farmer were rather disconcerting. And I think we all kind of get a sense that, Maggot's obviously onto something, because while the treasure that they're after is not one of wealth, it isn't, in a very real sense, a treasure that Bilbo did bring back, the ring. And it is Bilbo, kind of, that they want. They're looking for Baggins. And I seriously doubt that the enemy would really be able to, or even care about the difference between Bilbo and Frodo. They just want whichever of the Baggins has the ring. And they're kind of all assuming it's Bilbo because that's who Gollum met, and etc., etc. They knew where he lived. They lived together for a certain time, so they're just assuming it's the same. So yeah, he's right on a couple of counts. It's something to do with the treasure from Bilbo's journey. They're looking for Bilbo, and I'm just thinking now, Bombadil thinks very highly of Farmer Maggot in the House of Tom Bombadil. It no longer surprised them, but he made it no secret that he owed. This is talking about Bombadil. It no longer surprised them, but he made it no secret that he owed his recent knowledge largely to Farmer Maggot, who he seemed to regard as a person of more importance than they had imagined. How cool is this? There's earth under his old feet and clay in his fingers, wisdom in his bones, and both his eyes are open, said Tom. And he goes on to say that they also had dealings with the elves, and news from Gildor about Frodo's plight had come to him. But yeah, even Bombadil thinks very highly of this Maggot. He, clay between his fingers, earth between his toes, both his eyes are open, wisdom in his bones. So that's quite a high description. So just bear that in mind when you're looking at this stout mushroom farmer. That there's a lot more than meets the eye, which you already get the impression of in this chapter. And my last little point, and this is going to be shorter, about 15 minutes or so, because it's kind of again, we're just moving kind of from A to B in this chapter, and there's like not a whole lot of dialogue and all of that to dig into too much. And obviously, if I really wanted to, because there is a lot more to say than what I'm saying, is that I could literally like read out the book and as I go point out things and talk about things, but that would take triple the time. That would take like 3 hours. Triple time the normal audiobook. I don't have time for that. You don't have time for that. Maybe that's something for when I'm old. But at the moment, we're just going to kind of have to go through with points. But I hope this is working. This is more formatted than I had last time. And I'm having kind of a bit more fun because I feel like I'm articulating it better. But maybe that's just because I'm over my cold. Last little point is, Maggot offers to have for them to have dinner. Frodo's like, sorry, we've got to keep going. It's like, but if you have dinner with me, I'll get out the wagon and then we can drive, and that will save you a good step, and it'll also maybe help you from being discovered, stop you from being discovered. And then they have dinner, and I just love the scene that's just painted here. The sun was already behind the western hills and the light was fading. 2 of Maggot's sons and his 3 daughters came in, and a generous supper was laid on the large table. The kitchen was lit with candles, and the fire was mended. I love that line, and the fire was mended, alluding to the fact that it was smouldering, there were coals, and then they mended it. I love the way they say that. Continuing on, Mrs. Maggot bustled in and out. 1 or 2 of the other hobbits belonging to the farm household came in. In a short while, 14 sat down to eat. There was beer in plenty, and a mighty dish of mushrooms, bacon, and besides that, much other solid farmhouse fare. The dogs lay beside the fire and gnawed rinds and cracked bones. This is just such an ordinary description. Like, there's no words here. Like, he's not painting, like, really, like, it doesn't come across to you as this really eloquently painted dinner. But it's vivid, like, you get it. It's like this lived-in description. Like, it feels homely. And it's kind of got this universal, for lack of a better word, vibe to it, that you just grasp instantly. You know, the dogs laying by the fire, gnawing rinds and cracking bones, while 14 hobbits sit down at the table and eat mushrooms and bacon, and as the sun's setting in the way, it's just awesome. And really, I think that at a surface level, this is what a lot of people love about the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit, and the Peter Jackson trilogy, and just kind of Tolkien's work in general. One of the big parts of the pop culture facet of Tolkien's work are hobbits. That's obviously where it really all started in a publication commercial sense with The Hobbit. And that's really what got the ball rolling for Tolkien in his success as an author. And people are just enchanted by the idea of these little 4-foot, furry, footed and headed dudes that just walk around kind of in rustic clothing, living in rustic ways, and just eating food. And it's just really enchanting. And even though that is part of the more pop culture facet that, like, there are trends probably on Pinterest and all these stupid social media things that I don't really involve myself with about, like, aesthetics and things like that. Despite that, it's still, like, it's merited. Like, Tolkien is painting a picture, something so homely and so lived in, as I've already said before, that you can't help but just kind of draw that in your mind, and it just sticks there, and I really love that, and it comes up a lot, obviously, especially when in the chapters on the Shire, but I think this section here just really puts on display how the ordinary language helps to, like, I think, as I said, that's one of the cool things. It's like, it's pretty ordinary language. He's not doing anything particularly special in articulating this, but still, you can't help just the scene it paints. It's just so well laid out. Anyway, that's Shortcut to Mushrooms, chapter 4. The next chapter is Conspiracy Unmasked, which, while in actual length isn't that much longer, there's a lot more dialogue. There's going to be a lot to talk about, and I'm very keen for it. And then after that, we're into the Old Forest, and we finally can get to Tom Bombadil, and I have a lot to say about old Tom. But thank you for listening. I've already recorded, funnily enough, the 4th chapter. Oh wait, no, of course. What am I thinking? Anyway, yes. Frick. See So yeah, thank you very much for listening, and catch you later.